would like to start and introduce Pete. Pete is the VP of Sales for Rigor. Pete, let's give him a quick round of applause. But he doesn't get off that easy because we do have his bio, and this bio was all of the bios got a quick little remix. So this is the second time I've had the honor of introducing Pete this year. The first time was on his way up to accept the Sales Leader Award for the Technology Association of Georgia Growth Stage, which was quite the evening that night at the Buckhead Club. Pete's the VP of Sales at Rigor, a leading provider of digital experience lifecycle management solutions. As a growth mindset leader with 3 years of experience driving new revenue for enterprise software companies, he loves building and developing high-performing teams. And seeing the Rigor team and culture, that is quite true. Today, Pete's responsibilities include accelerating Rigor's growth and sales velocity across all addressable markets globally. Pete is still getting used to the t-shirt and blue jeans lifestyle, which is much different from his ties, button-downs, and Dockers days at HP Enterprise, Landesk, and Computer Associates. Let's welcome Pete to the stage. Pete, all you.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? Great. Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here. So as they mentioned, I'm with Rigor. We're actually headquartered here in the village up on the 3rd floor. About 40 people in our company right now between all the respective teams. Founded actually back in 2010 by Craig Hyde, our CEO. And just real quickly, on our background, we kind of specialize in the digital experience arena. So in a nutshell, as you know, when you hit a website, if it's running slowly, like, more than a second or two to get the content you're looking for, you're gone, right? You're going to go buy whatever it is you're looking for elsewhere. And where we focus is essentially on that front end and helping clients identify where they may be having a problem so that they could take corrective action and ensure a fast and reliable experience for their end users. So if you are a Home Depot or a Cars.com or a CNN, we kind of play a role in their environments and helping ensure that whatever they're delivering content-wise to their end users is something that we help ensure. And it's really for the obvious reasons, right? Obviously, web experience is bad, lost revenue, no conversions, all kinds of problems associated with that. So, in terms of our culture and what we're all about here, these are kind of our core values, and those really they're our guiding principles for how we operate, how we hire, and everything we want to do about scaling. Certainly very much around, being genuine, owning our work, improving every day, just to name a few things. But they certainly guide what we do, and we take that very seriously. Much credit to our COO, Catherine O'Day, who kind of keeps that culture in place, certainly teaching me a lot about the culture in the earlier stage companies, which you don't necessarily always find up in large enterprise. So, if I think about kind of the early days at Rigor, because I've actually been there since last January. So before me, there was a team of folks who were very much operating with the don't be afraid of anyone, right? That they could go out and take on the world compete with the largest enterprise companies, onboarding, the new logos, right? It started with the small companies at the time, a Control Freak and a Georgia Tech, Commissions Inc., which you'll hear today as Matt, as one of the panel speakers as well. And then as they went on and kind of landed some of the larger logos, like a Weather Channel, and then on into a Home Depot at that time. And I think it was just through pure brute force and grit and hunger and desire to make a difference and compete that really got them where they wanted to go. And then, right about December of 16, they had kind of crossed over that $3 million mark in ARR. And I give much credit to my predecessor and the team because, what they did to get to that point, not really my skill set. So I was kind of for a different phase to help them move beyond that. But when I talked with our CEO, actually when I came on board, I was amazed with the logos that they had onboarded throughout that time, which was just great to see. And then as they evolved, so as we kind of looked at, okay, we've hit this mark and we want to scale, and we kind of planted a flag of saying, let's go to $20 million, right? How do we get to 20 million ARR? How fast can we do that? And what do we need to go do that? We had to do some things. We had to ensure we were very much aligned on our core values. We wanted to make sure that we were investing in client success to ensure that we didn't have churn occurring. Obviously, a very, very bad thing. Keeps sales VPs up at night. You sell new bookings, and if there's churn, you feel like I'm like the mouse on the wheel and we're not getting anywhere. So we knew that, and then we certainly had to further unify the go-to-market team, getting everybody under one umbrella and all kind of focusing on here's how we're going to go forward together. So with that, it kind of really began with the mindset, right? And I don't know, how many of you have actually read Carol Dweck's book called Mindset? Good. It's a great read. I would encourage many of you to take a look at that, especially in the early stage companies that you're trying to scale. There's all kinds of professional and personal applications there, but the reality is it's a couple of core principles there. The becoming is better than being really, I think, sums it up best. But it talks quite a bit about fixed mindsets and growth mindsets. You tend to find the fixed ones probably in a lot of the larger enterprise companies. They think that they've got it all figured out, and they kind of lose some of that hunger and passion. Whereas the growth mindset is quite the opposite. And the reality is the world's top business leaders, top athletes, they all kind of share that trait of having a growth mindset. And what does that mean? It's having a passion and desire to get things done. It's really the willingness to improve every day. They kind of get rid of the limiting thoughts and feel like they can always improve every day and get better. And they're open and they solicit feedback always on how do I improve each and every day, which I think is very core and fundamental to the only way you can continue to grow along the way. So that's kind of a core part of even our hiring profile overall. And when I think about a growth-focused team, right? Here's some of the members of our SDR and sales team, and we want to always keep going up and to the right? Month over month and quarter over quarter, year over year, so that we can continue to grow. And there's some common traits there that I think when I look at building a team, if you want to have a highly successful sales team, things that are just core fundamentals to what you need. Certainly one is having that sense of urgency, right? Even though we're an early stage company, there's no reason that we can't operate with the same discipline that a large enterprise company has that's well-trained, well-funded, tons of resources, knowing that we could go out and really move the ball forward today. Because that's how we operate. It's not what could we do next week or at the end of the month or the end of the quarter, but rather, hey, what can we do today to move the needle in the business to get going in the right direction? I think additionally really is that willingness to just commit to excellence. Each and every day there's a new challenge, right, that we have to overcome. And I think those that show up with that make a difference attitude on saying, hey, each and every day, I'm not here just to draw a paycheck. If you're in sales, we're here for accelerators, right? Hitting our quota, our bookings target, that's kind of the check in the box, and we want to try to move beyond that. Kind of our sales kickoff theme for this year was hashtag jump the line, right? We know what our bookings plan is, and at the end of the quarter, we want to make sure we jump the line to get over the plan so that we show growth even beyond, targets that we set out for ourselves. Also, for us, create an environment at Rigor where, it's okay to make mistakes. Let's just try not to repeat them. Let's learn from them, but we want people to take risks, try new things, so that we can actually grow. And then certainly, which is core, is right, being competitive. We're in certainly a fierce environment. In our space specifically, there's probably 7 to 10 vendors we see all the time that we compete with. So we kind of have to always stay ahead of the curve on figuring out what are they doing, what are they messaging, how do we differentiate, what are the gaps that we could provide to create our unique value versus someone else. And so we focus a lot on that. And then, when I think about, hey, why are those types of traits important, right, when you're hiring? One, you think about the growth aspirations we've set out for ourselves, that's just kind of fundamental. You have to have a team that operates like that. And not just sales, but our sales team, our SDR team, our alliances team, just across the entire company is kind of the DNA, right, that we try to instill across the board. And then obviously with scaling, we had to put process in place, right? Because if you want to scale and you do so without process, it'll destroy you down the road. So we wanted to make it clear and repeatable for everyone, and then use it as something that we can actually measure against. So we know, are we doing the right things? Where do we need to adjust? What worked? What did not work? And then continue to adapt. And we certainly needed to create more predictability around our pipeline. And I'll talk further about kind of what we've done in that area specifically, because for a VP of sales, the worst thing is, hey, if you get to the end of a quarter, you've closed it all out, you wake up day one of the next quarter and you're figuring out, what are we going to go do this quarter? What's the bookings target? Maybe not so sure. And we need predictability, our CEO needs predictability, our finance director needs predictability. So we try to create an environment we can actually kind of look out and forecast what are we going to do 1 quarter down the road, 2 quarters down the road, based upon the pipeline that we created in quarter or the trailing 90 days. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. And then certainly, the go-to-market playbook, right? That's core and critical to what we do. I mean, I think ours right now is upwards of probably 75 pages long, right? But it's these core things on the why we exist, our customer profile, making sure that everybody understands the process from pricing and sales ops and competitive, all those core things that really are necessary to scaling. And that's important because as a new hire comes in, we want to make sure that we can say, hey, start here. This is everything packaged up in one spot for you versus, trying to check Google Drive and search for things that have been created over the last 5 years and who knows where they are and if they're up to date. So we put a lot of energy, kind of each department owning their piece of the pie to ensure that that's always up to date and accurate. So I think, putting that in place will help scale because now, when we hire a new person, maybe a couple weeks before they start, we ship that over to them so they could start learning and ramping even before they walk in the door. And kind of come in a little bit more aware than day one, for example. So those are pretty important things for us as well. And then, I talked about the pipeline. How many have heard the term lead velocity rate? If you followed I know a lot of Rigor folks have, but who follows Jason Lemkin, right? So go follow Jason Lemkin, right? He kind of does SaaStr on the West Coast. Big SaaS conference. I think each year there's upwards of 10, 12,000 people that attend. And he talked about the most important metric for SaaS companies is their lead velocity rate. And this was all about forward-looking predictability. He said if you want to double the size of your company year over year, then you better be doubling your lead rate, literally growing your lead rate 8% month over month for the course of a year. Because he said, at the end of the day, your sales results is just it's a trailing factor, right? You can't really influence that much your in-quarter bookings, right? How you finish. If you want predictability or how you're going to do next quarter or maybe the quarter after that, look how much pipeline you created in quarter, right? So for us, we said, okay, we looked at our average deal cycles. We looked at our conversion rates. We looked at our annual contract value on most of our deals. And we basically said, okay, how much top of funnel has to be created this quarter, this month, month over month, so that, if we close, give or take 20% of that or a third of our qualified pipe down the road, where are we going to finish? So that we could start giving optics 3-4 months on, hey, where are the numbers going to be? So we look at that. We created Salesforce dashboards around that. How much new logo pipe did we create? How much expansion pipe did we create? And Jason kind of authored an article on this. So if you just Google his name and lead velocity rate, you'll find it. And it's really a good read and probably one of the most valuable pieces of info that a sales VP can leverage to ensure. Because for us, let me go back. We had to make sure that we had the entire team focused and aligned around our pipeline. So we essentially put quota targets in place across every department for creating pipeline. So the SDR team, the ISRs, the AEs, the alliances, the marketing group, even client success. And we said, hey, we're all a part of our future, so let's take ownership on creating the pipeline month over month. So then we can literally say, okay, say you're going after a $4 million a year new bookings target, for example. Well, you probably have to say, we need to create 16 million in pipe this year. And then you start backing into how much has to be created every single month for us to even have a shot at achieving that goal. And then, with my leadership team, we sit down and we say, how are we doing? What did we create? And then, certainly, you can see sometimes the panic in our eyes, like we didn't create enough last month. Let's go out and get after it. But I think keeping this in front and center of everybody and getting an entire go-to-market team aligned around that will help create more predictability as we go forward down the road in our pipe. And then when I think about kind of the foundation, right, for sales acceleration, kind of once you've got those core things in place, those foundational things, one, I know my most important job is recruiting, right? Any sales leader's job, kind of number one, it's recruit. You think it's, hey, always deliver on the number, but it's actually recruiting is the first one because it's rare that an A player just walks through your door, right? You see potentially, the resumes that come in, dear hiring manager, dear, someone who didn't put any effort in to landing a job. So, it's on me to go out, and when I think about 1, 2, 3 quarters down the road, who can I start courting along the way? Because it's not often that a great person is available the minute you meet them. So you have to kind of work through that along the way. Secondly was, kind of standardization. So across the board, whether our SDR team, our ISRs, or AEs, we had to ensure everybody was very much in alignment on our messaging, right? That everybody could deliver the 8 to 10 slides that are the front end of every presentation, have our speaker notes written out, have them practice with us, have them practice with their peers, have them practice in a group, but to ensure that, if you're down the hallway here or you're upstairs, that, whether you're talking to an SDR or you're talking to an AE, the message is the same. Right? So you had to create really that standardization. Otherwise, you'd probably get multiple answers to what we do. But it's presenting, it's how do we do discovery, how do we do qualification, very important. And for me, I look at the App Dynamics playbook, right? They were bought by Cisco for $3.7 billion. And their worldwide sales VP, this was core. No matter, they had obviously way more reps globally, probably 2,000 reps globally. And for them, it's like, hey, as a rep, you get 3 shots at delivering this presentation. And if you can't do it, you're out, right? They took it very, very seriously. And, to me, it mattered. I mean, a $3.7 billion exit was pretty impressive. It was one of the largest multiples for a software company, as of that time. And then, ensuring that our demos deliver value, right? How many times do, you see that, hey, we just show everything that we can do, but we don't even know if that's truly resonating and delivering on what the client was looking for. So we want to make sure that the demos we create, and it's something we're certainly working on ourselves right now to, certainly improve upon, is just, hey, is this the right demo for the right persona? Because for us, it may be a VP of e-commerce one day, somebody in digital marketing another, or potentially QA, dev, or ops teams as well. So we have to customize and change our message depending upon the persona. So I think it's important to make sure that, with your own companies, that you're thinking through that. Are we demonstrating the value given the persona we're speaking with? And then, I think also putting together a real good operational cadence. I'm thankful I have an amazing sales operations analyst, and she keeps me sorted every single week. But, we have a cadence that there's a standard deck that we review every week that essentially it's the pulse and the rhythm of our business, right, every week, so that when our CEO asks, how are we doing? What does this look like? What does that look like? We've got the deck ready to go, which is certainly an important thing there. And then the training, right, investing in people and ensuring that they're educated properly on whether it's sales calls or the discovery or the training that they need on just deal management in general. We embrace some enterprise selling methodologies here that are certainly used by some of the largest software companies in the world today as well. And I think that's proven very helpful because it helped all of us standardize on our language when we talk about deals internally, so everybody is on the same page. So, in the reality, and kind of, I'll close with this here, and I'm sure you've probably seen this floating around, but, people tend to think success is just like that, just a straight line and it's all great, and that's how we get there. But the reality is it's the right side here, right? It's a slugfest along the way. It's the days you're in the doldrums thinking, how could we turn this around? How are we ever going to get better? Everything's on fire, to the next day where you landed a new deal and it was a great logo and you're excited and you think we're great. But I think for us, we know that on the journey to 20 as our next milestone, we'll have a lot of this along the way here, but the goal for us is to continue always going up and to the right, kind of just leveraging some of the foundational things that I shared here today. Okay? All right.
Great. We're going to have a couple questions open up. I've got one that I want to start with. So you started in January of last year, right? What for the sales leaders who are going to come into a new company that maybe has been around for 2 years, 4 years, what are the what's like the first thing you did on day one when you're like, all right, I've got to kind of step back and figure out what to do?
Yeah, so certainly, other than just going and meeting everybody in every department to learn about them, really very much that first quarter was observing, right? What's working? What got the company to the point that they're at then? What does everybody think they need to do differently? Kind of those hallway conversations of across the respective departments. What do you think? What worked? What didn't work? And I think I was in the first quarter really just in data gathering mode and observing and kind of formulating, okay, based on what I'm hearing, these are probably going to be the go forward plans. And then literally, day 91 implementing, really.
What is that? You had an operational cadence or something that you go over? Is
Yeah.
that weekly? And kind of what does that look like? And
Right. So we look at the pipeline that we created, literally week to week. We look at our bookings week to week. How much was new? How much was expansions? We look at each individual on how much pipeline did they create. Was it self-generated pipeline if you're an ISR or an AE? Was it pipeline created by our SDR team or our marketing team or our alliance team? So we understand, what each department is contributing to the overall pipeline. We look at just kind of mostly around that. It's really mostly a pipeline exercise, and then we start to look at, okay, based upon what we've created over kind of in that trailing 90-day view, what are we thinking we might deliver in terms of actual bookings next quarter, right? So we know in our environment that once we have a deal hit qualified stage, we close 33%. That's just what the trailing 12 months shows us. So therefore, we're looking at that saying, okay, how much of this pipeline, the total open pipeline, is at 30%, meaning qualified stage, and then we start guesstimating, okay, we're going to close a third of that, plus whatever may carry over that doesn't happen in the trailing quarter. We kind of layer that in there as well, like earlier stage deals. We'll layer that in there as well to kind of give us a sense. So if Craig asks me, hey, what do things look like, and we're still 2 months away from day one of the next quarter, I can give him a ballpark kind of week to week based on what the data shows. Because if you've got the right sales caliber, the deals will happen. They will close them, but we have to create them. And then we'll work the deal cycles and ensure the proper deal management along the way of the sales campaign. And and we'll hopefully increase our averages, but right now that's 33%. Yep.
Great information. Thanks very much for sharing what you have.
Sure.
Have you found value or benefit in taking those 90-day, the quarterly goals and breaking those into 30-day objectives, maybe
Yep.
even self-defined by the team that can then be monitored or measured against during those weekly cadences?
Yeah, we actually, what we do, so every 30 days, while I look with my leadership team kind of on a week-to-week basis, every 30 days we call it RPAs, right? It's from there's a great book from Mike Weinberg called Sales Simplified, right? And he talks about our results pipeline and activity. And we every 30 days we do our look back. What were your results? What pipe did you create? And what was the activity if you were short on results and short on pipe, right? And that's kind of the rhythm with the reps. We just started doing it with our SDR team as well. So I think there's just that sense that, hey, if you want a culture of accountability and high performance, that's the conversations you have to have, right? So we do that 30-day look back, which we find very healthy. So we're never getting to the end of the 90-day mark saying, okay, what did it look like? You know, that's kind of a weekly to 30-day.
How do you align churn with sales commissions so that you're not signing up clients
Yeah.
that will churn?
Yeah. So we haven't done anything to align on the compensation side, but what I will say is the churn that we have historically seen has primarily been more in that SMB arena. Okay, they're just more volatile there. Whereas, someone left the company or just the budget dried up, it's not there anymore. Our focus, our buyer persona is very much the mid-market to enterprise space. And while sales cycles are a little bit longer, the due diligence they do and the contract process they go through, the decision they make about putting our platform in place tends to have them less of a churn risk because the investment they made and they themselves look bad because the deal sizes are also bigger as well, right? Whereas, our average contract value, if across the board, top to bottom, is about $25K. But most of the enterprise deals we're landing, those are closer to like 75 to 100K or more type deals. And they just are less at risk for churn. So what I am is very aligned with our chief customer officer and the client success team to ensure that once that handoff occurs, that they are very much there. And we put our pre-sales engineer on the same team as our delivery resources so that they're part of that whole buyer journey, right? So that it's not that traditional handoff where we lose.
Make any sense to not sell to those small businesses?
It would make a lot of sense. And we kind of don't do that so much. We wouldn't turn it away, but like our SDR team and our reps, they're really only targeting companies that are doing over 100 million a year in revenue, just because we just know our chance of A, affordability of the platform is more likely there, and B, they're just less likely to churn. And then now we're really trying to wrap professional services around that, kind of as a managed service weekly that we offer, so that we're talking with them week to week to week, so we would know way ahead of time if we were at risk of a churn down the road. But if we try to position ourselves as an extension of their staff, hey, just work with us 1 to 2 hours a week, we'll tell you what we're seeing on your site that needs to be fixed, they view it like, hey, we're a real inexpensive resource that they could leverage. And then they don't look at it so much as, hey, I want to churn from Rigor. They're more like, I don't want to churn from this resource that helps me every week. So that's kind of how we try to get ahead of it.
Hey, Pete, I appreciate what you put recruiting as number one in your list of priorities as sales leader. Along those lines, what do you look for in terms of a personality profile or something like that? I don't know whether you do anything structured or whether you just go by gut or a mixture of both. And do you, another, I guess a secondary question would be, do you see success of people coming from tangible product sales into this line of work, and are they successful?
Yeah, so I definitely know kind of our hiring profile, based on the personas that we have, just in terms of skill set and background. I think, in terms of just, that kind of stuff aside, I'm looking for, are they curious during the interview process? Are they coachable, right? And I may ask them things along the way to kind of glean that out. Like, for example, when we get to a stage that we have someone, maybe do a presentation for me, as kind of one of the last steps. As soon as they end, the very first question I ask them is, okay, great, self-diagnose for me. And I just kind of shut up, and I hear what they say. And they're either going to, well, fall all over themselves, which could happen because they just don't expect the question. But what I'm looking for is for them to basically say, here's what I think I did good, here's where I think I could have done better, and then what do you think I could have done better? Because now there's, if you think about mindset, they're soliciting feedback. They're probably coachable. I'm observing. Are they taking notes when I start to give them the answer, right? Are they paying attention to the detail? Are they taking what I'm telling them as valuable? And if they're not checking the boxes on those things, it's kind of the red flags, right? Even as simple as, hey, when we come down to meet them, have they taken the time to look at my LinkedIn profile? Do we have any mutual connections? Did they put in the time to do the research on a meeting they were about to have? Because I know the very best I'm ever going to get from somebody is day one when I meet them, right? It's going to go downhill after that. So and then I just, clearly I'll look at their background, I'll vet them through our contacts. As you know, you can vet a candidate in a minute on LinkedIn. And then I look at track record, were they a constant every 12 to 18 months to a new job, or do they have good 3, 4, 5-year runs in places where they accomplish stuff? Were they quick to put results on their resume? When I see a salesperson's resume that doesn't have results, I don't give it a lot of look. What I like is the reps that are like, delivered, delivered, delivered. That's important because they're essentially messaging, I've accomplished some good things, I've done good work. So it's a kind of a lot of those factors, if you will. And I'll tell you, if you pay attention to like Mark Robert's sales acceleration formula, they talk a lot about really good hiring profiles that, hey, these are things that if they're not clicking off on these 5, 10 things, look out.
Let's give Pete a round of applause.